Sup? Welcome back to my channel. If you say anything about the giant fucking pimple on my face, you're biphobic. My name is Eloise, and if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, that's probably like the fourth name that you've heard me introduce myself as, and that's because reality can be whatever I want it to be. Which is actually a really good segue to talk about what this video is about. And that is Doctor Who. This is such a terrible angle. Why am I doing this? I can get a better angle of myself, surely. Okay, way better. Specifically, Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 4, Lucky Day. And it is one of the proportionally high number of Dr. Light episodes. Blink's a really good example of a Dr. Light episode where he's kind of just gone for most of it for some reason. You know, he's not there. Don't worry about it. It follows Ruby Sunday, a Doctor's companion from season 1, as she navigates real life after interacting with the Doctor. This episode takes place after Ruby has said, "Bye, Doctor. I'm gonna go hang out with my family now." She's kind of recovering from being in space and the universe dying, you know, as one does. But she's putting herself out there. She's exploring online dating. And she meets this frankly quite attractive man. He's kind of basic hot, but like he's hot. Named Conrad. I don't remember his last name, so he's just Conrad. So she meets Conrad. They go on a few dates. They're really hitting it off. The actors have actually like really good chemistry. Like I remember watching the first part of this episode and just being like, they're so cute together. And then the rest of the episode happened. They go out and Ruby is working with UNIT to try and hunt down this thing called, I believe it's a Shrike or a Shriek. I'm gonna call it a Shrike because it sounds cooler. So they're hunting the Shrike, and it's like attracted to this green goo that Conrad and Ruby like ingested. Or I think they just touched it. I don't think they actually ingested it. But somehow they were both infected by this thing that is attracting the Shrike. And Ruby like gives him the antidote and she's like, hey, just drink this and then it'll stop trying to get you. And then he pockets it and you're like, Conrad, what are you doing? It is basically revealed that he is a podcaster. He decided to stalk and deceive Ruby Sunday because I don't even know if she publicly said shit about the Doctor or if she just like privately interacted with UNIT. Because you see a flashback at one point in the episode. I don't remember. This might be the cold open at the start, where it's the Doctor and Belinda, who is the companion for this season, meeting like little baby Conrad. Like this is supposed to be like 2007, so he's like 10. So how the fuck does he know about Ruby Sunday? It probably was like he saw pictures of them together, or maybe she did publicly say something about the Doctor. He's been stalking her and puts on this like insane charade that is really well directed and like produced and like is scary for the characters. There's like a bunch of Shrikes suddenly, but actually they're guys that Conrad paid to dress up. Turns out that Conrad is part of they call it a think tank. They're not like a think tank, they're like a podcast group, like the Team 10 house. Conrad's goal in this has been to expose UNIT. They frame it as him exposing them for being a waste of taxpayer dollars, or like they're hiding shit, or I think some of it is like they think they have advanced technology that they're hiding from the public, which they are. They are, like, yeah. And he sort of goes on to like publicly on the internet humiliate Ruby Sunday. It doesn't stick, but it kind of ruins her life for a little bit, and then it sort of swaps POVs a little bit through it. It's mostly Ruby's POV, and then you see some parts from Conrad's. Conrad basically has this big plan where he's gonna break into UNIT HQ with fucking AK-47s or like those big Call of Duty video game guns and GoPros, because that'll work. That'll stop the government. And he makes it up through the UNIT tower, up to the main building, the main setting for all the Doctor Who scenes. And he gets attacked by a Shrike. But plot twist, it's real this time, because there actually was a fucking Shrike hunting him, but Unit caught it earlier in the episode. But Conrad never took the goddamn antidote, so obviously it attacks him. But only for a second, because then fucking Kate Lethbridge Stewart comes out of the shadows, appears, and like tases the Shrike, or like she gets it off him somehow, like she can control it. And she's like, so this is the shit we can do, so shut the fuck up. And then the episode just kind of ends there. I think there's one line about somebody being like, oh, Kate, you... But it also just kind of ends with her threatening Conrad, which did make me feel a little weird. And now I'm going to kind of get into why that made me feel weird. So a little bit of background on UNIT for anyone who isn't a Whovian. UNIT is a organization that seems to be part of, or at least funded by, the British government, but has a bigger amount of authority than you would assume for something that is just part of the British government. Like, they seem to have a level of autonomy that supersedes the British government at certain points of the show. I don't know if it's ever actually explained what their like place in the government is, or like what they are. It doesn't matter. They were founded in, I think it's actually a point of contention in the show if they were founded in the 80s or the 70s, to fight like aliens. Mostly, I mean, it's Doctor Who, so it is all aliens. They don't always know that it's aliens. Sometimes they think, oh, maybe this is like a ghoul, but it ends up being an alien. And they're similar to Torchwood, except also different, because Torchwood is under the Queen. I think in the classic Who, it's kind of just a general like shadow government vibe thingy, and then in modern Who, it's just like they hunt aliens, which is what Torchwood did. And functionally, they serve as like a doctor stand-in for when he's not there, which is also what Torchwood did. They seem to have technology and government political power that is kind of unmatched on Earth. I mean, they don't have more power over other countries' governments, it seems. Although maybe every story just takes place in Britain, and that's why we see them only have authority in Britain. And the timeline of modern Doctor Who is very unclear. It is extremely unclear if the public knows aliens exist. It seems like they kind of do, but it's not clear which past events in Doctor Who's chronology and canonicity are still like true. They always add a little retcon every new sesh, every new mini reboot. It's at the cracks in time for Matt Smith to be like, oh no, this is why the companions don't remember seeing a Dalek as a child, because the invasion back in the 2010s, it didn't happen, don't worry about it. And then for Ncuti's era, they have fucking Neil Patrick Harris come in and say, I made the jigsaw of your history, Doctor. So UNIT very publicly now exists, and it seems they've existed this publicly since Capaldi, maybe? Since the whole Dark Water, Death in Heaven. There was publicly a bunch of Cybermen zombies. Or it's possible that they're implying that UNIT has recently become public knowledge with the whole David Tennant specials that had them revealed to be in a big tower with a gun on it in the middle of London. So presumably they are public knowledge at that point, at the very latest 14th Doctor. But it's not clear, again, how much UNIT actually tells people about what they're doing. Like, they seem to be like a public secret organization. I guess like a 3-letter agency from the US. People know they exist, and they know some of the stuff they're doing, but there's also some stuff that people don't really get to know about. So it seems like they're just kind of 3-letter agency vibes. We are shown that the public's knowledge of aliens seems foggy at best. There's a portion at around the midpoint of the episode where Conrad is going on like one of those taped radio talk shows that you see a bunch of on the internet, but it's like a very professionally produced thing. He's been invited to speak on a very professionally produced thing. So whatever his conspiracy theories are about aliens not being real, they're not ridiculous if he's getting that much clout. And obviously people in the real world do get a lot of clout for really crazy shit, but most of the time they don't say the crazy part until you're like in it. Crazy people say crazy shit, but they're not going on the Today Show to say crazy shit. Like, they're gonna give you their most basic milquetoast shit. And I think what Conrad's is he's being like, well, where is this funding going? Like, we're not actually seeing these invasions all the time. What's the sitch? Unit? Which, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, is kind of a good point. And Conrad is written as such a comically hateable character that when you're actually watching the episode, you're not agreeing with him. Like, he is so, what he did to Ruby was so past the line of like what we as an audience can forgive a character for. And the way he acted afterwards, where he was like acting like dating her was some great mountain that he had to summit. Hateable character. He's written that way. It's intentional. It's not an accident. So when you're watching the episode, you're like, man, fuck this guy. I hope he gets what's coming to him. And then he gets what's coming to him, and you kind of sit back and go, well, that felt a little weird. I don't want to watch that episode again. And then you don't watch the episode again, and then you make a YouTube video about it. Because the way that Kate and all the characters talk about him, it's so liberals talking about conservatives coded. And just to be clear, like, look, like, I am very left-leaning. Like, I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm not. It's apparent from my existence. But the messaging in this episode is so heavy-handed that it just made me feel weird and sad. So Conrad goes through the episode being a hateable fucking asshole. Not even a love to hate, just to get this guy off my screen vibe. You watch him get greater success, get greater like monetary success. He's making more money. He's getting more public. And then he gets to his highest peak of breaking into the fucking unit headquarters. And metaphorically and maybe literally pisses himself on live TV. And by the end, he completely loses his reputation. He, I think it is established, blew most of his money on the unit heist, buying a bunch of guns, and he's ruined. His life is over. I actually just realized that I missed a crucial part of the plot. It actually doesn't end with Conrad getting confronted and stopped in unit headquarters and being threatened by Kate. It ends with Ncuti Gatwa, 15th Doctor, showing up, like materializing the TARDIS around him, and then also threatening him. It's Ncuti only appears in the cold open and at this stinger at the end, and maybe like a flashback in the middle. Yeah, it's like one flashback in the middle. So Ncuti basically just shows up at the end to lecture Conrad about being a conservative grifter, basically. It's the coded language that he uses to describe it. Like, you're lying about this, you don't actually feel this way, you're just doing it because it gives you attention. I don't remember if it's Kate or Ncuti at this end scene that says it, but they use the phrase weaponized misinformation or something similar, and it's so very clearly coded a specific way. But here's the thing, the coding doesn't work. It's so frustrating because, like, conspiracy theorists are astronomically more likely to be on the side of a conservative party. So the Tories for England and the Republican in the United States. And the thing is, in both cases, in both cultural contexts that Doctor Who is definitely trying to cater toward, the conservatives are the ones that are fucking in charge right now. And Conrad is coming from a more liberal perspective of like the government should be open about what it's doing. That's a more like liberal perspective, but he's coded as conservative. It doesn't make any sense, and it leaves you feeling weird. I started this little tirade here by saying that I am very clearly leftist. I know RTD is too. That's the whole thing. He's clearly trying to do leftist commentary on conservative grifters, but he's making the government the good guy. Because the thing is that Kate gets like kind of reprimanded, but her behavior in this episode is never actually addressed. In Doctor Who, I have not seen The War Between the Land and the Sea. I don't really want to. It doesn't look good. And I think it might be sort of addressed in that, but not really, because she's not the main character. So I can't imagine that they're able to address it with any significant or sufficient depth. So this is kind of where her story is left off. Like, Unit does come back, but her arc of being a fucking dictator doesn't. Because she absolutely could have stopped Conrad. Like, she's a fucking sci-fi wizard, basically. She has all this technology that can do basically whatever the plot needs it to do. She could have stopped Conrad from even getting past the front door. Instead, she let him into the building where people were. Like, she comes out with all her guys and with, you know, people with guns and whatever. So there were people in the building. She didn't clear out the building or anything without even really trying to, like, disable them at all. Because she wants to scare him. She leads him up to the very tippy top where all their, like, really high-tech shit is, where the big gun is. And then she released a fucking actual monster alien on him. Like, that's fucking insane, Kate. Kate? Hey, Kate? Hey, Kate, do you realize that's fucking insane? And the tone of the show does not reflect how, like, frightening it is that Kate can get away with that. Because it's shown as, like, scary when you're in Conrad's POV before it's revealed that Kate is the one in control. But when you kind of zoom back and are more to Kate's perspective, like at unit headquarters after Conrad has left, it's kind of like a, oh, glad that's over. Like a relief and like a little bit of a comedic tone, because it's like, we sure showed him. And that just does not fit with the thing that just happened on my screen. And the fact that the doctor doesn't even say anything about it. So he basically just shows up to lecture Conrad. Doesn't say a word about Kate's fucking behavior. And that's kind of the note that the episode leaves it on. It's such a weird mix of coding and messaging and almost out of character writing, especially for the doctor to not call out Kate on being a weirdo. Although the 15th Doctor does sometimes come off as like an extra cruel version. Like, he has a level of cruelty to him that we've never seen before. I think this is exemplified in the way he tortures Kid, like he does in the Eurovision episode. But also this episode is really emblematic, which is weird because that's one of the things Doctor's not supposed to be. You know, never cruel or cowardly. And of course, Conrad says some dumb shit at the end when he's talking to the doctor that makes you just dislike him again, because he's a very hateable character. But if you actually sit and think about the episode and what the episode is saying for like 5 minutes, it's not a good episode. It's unfortunate because it's a very well shot, produced, like created episode. It's well done. It gets you to feel the emotions that it wants you to feel. But the writing is just so strange in this episode. And I did not look up who the writer is because I never do my homework. And I just feel like it could have been an actually interesting examination of how UNIT functions, and could have been a interesting political, social commentary about government entities and like people's reactions to them. Like, you still could have had Conrad as a grifter, but then also made UNIT anything other than just the good guys who need to stop this asshole. It's just very indicative to me of the quality of kind of the whole season. And I would say a lot of the Disney Doctor Who era. There's part of me that is definitely very sad that it got canceled officially. But I'm also not upset that it's gonna be hopefully out of Disney's hands, because the budget was helpful. There are definitely a lot of good looking episodes, But the amount of time that they are given to develop these stories and characters, 9 episodes for the first season and maybe the same amount for the second, maybe slightly less, is not enough. Like, we need to have those 20 episode seasons where you can have fun filler episodes, and then you can also have good introspective character building episodes. And I think that's where Doctor Who really thrives, is as a sort of pseudo anthology series that can fluctuate in tone so much. It's a very versatile show if you know how to use it, and Disney just doesn't. I could honestly talk about this for much, much longer, but I wanted to keep this video kind of just focused on Lucky Day because it was the episode that I had the most to talk about, and it was the one that I thought about the most recently. I'd probably need to go back and rewatch the series to formulate a longer video on all of my thoughts if anyone would be interested in that. If you did make it to the end, thank you so much for watching. I would appreciate it if you give it a like and maybe subscribe to my channel. I don't know, just click all the buttons. Do whatever you want. I love you. Peace out.